I'm Robin Gagnon.
And I'm Eric Gagnon, and we sell restaurants. We started the nation's largest restaurant brokerage firms. We sell restaurants over a decade ago. You can find us online at WeSellRestaurants.com.
We are also on the air once a week with our expert guests talking about topics that are trending in the restaurant business. Tweet your own questions while we're on the air to our Twitter handle, Sell Restaurants. Post on our Facebook page at facebook.com/We Sell Restaurants. If we don't get to your question, don't worry, we'll follow up on social media.
Our goal is to satisfy your appetite for acquisition, feed the need for restaurant reality, and serve up a recipe for business success. We bring on board the best and brightest in the restaurant industry to talk shop and share the inside scoop.
We're very fortunate today to be joined by our expert guests on the topic of liquor licenses. Liquor licenses are critical to the restaurant business. They can deliver the highest profit margin of any product on the menu. They also contribute a huge amount of sales. In the United States, alcohol sales equal about 90 billion. Yes, that's billion with a B each year. And unlike most other entertainment expenses, alcohol sales are virtually recession proof.
Yeah, they can also offer the highest risk for the restaurant owner. Whether you are a seasoned operator or thinking about opening a restaurant, today's show will help you understand what you need to know about obtaining a liquor license and the ongoing programs you should have in place to minimize liabilities as a business owner. Robin, can you tell us who we have on the show today?
Joining us today is attorney Grace Yang. Grace Yang is a member of Gray Robinson's Alcohol Beverage Group. Her practice includes compliance analysis for the alcohol beverage manufacturers, suppliers, and retailers, alcohol, hotel, restaurant lottery and occupational licensing work, representation of alcohol and hospitality industry members before local, state, and federal administrative agencies, alcohol-related zoning issues, alcohol tax issues, and any other issues concerning the sale, distribution, advertisement, and marketing of alcohol products. Grace has a very excellent background. She's the past editor of the Bar, the ABA newsletter reporting on alcohol beverage legal developments. She graduated from Yale University in 1994 with a BA cum laude and with distinction. She received her JD in 97 from Cornell Law School, where she was managing editor of the Cornell Journal of Law and Public Policy and the justice of her Phi Alpha Delta chapter. Grace is fluent in Mandarin Chinese and Taiwanese and proficient in Spanish. That is a very impressive resume, Grace. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me on the show. It's a pleasure to be with you all.
Now, Miss Yang is only part of the team on board to tackle this subject today. Great. Eric, who's our other guest?
We are also joined today by Michelle Stumpy. Michelle Stumpy is a seasoned litigator whose practice includes hospitality and dram shop litigation, as well as alcohol licensing and consulting. Mrs. Stumpy is a frequent speaker on alcohol compliance and licensing and acts as a consultant for various trade associations, including the Georgia Restaurant Association, Georgia Food Industry Association, and Georgia Association of Convenience Stores. She is a frequent guest lecturer at the Georgia State School of Hospitality and the Responsible Alcohol Sales and Service Workshops. She developed were so well received that many Georgia jurisdictions now require attendance as a prerequisite to obtaining an alcohol license. Ms. Stumpy is also a co-founder and board member of The Given Kitchen, a 501c3 that provides educational programming as well as crisis funding for members of the Metro Atlanta restaurant industry who are faced with unanticipated hardship. Michelle, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so let's kick this off by asking both panelists the same questions. You have incredible credentials, and your bios read like a who's who of liquor licensing. So my question to each one of you is this. Can you think of a circumstance or reason where an operator should go it alone, meaning not use an attorney or someone typically known in the industry as a liquor license facilitator if they're applying for a license? Grace, we'll start with you.
I think there are situations when an operator can try to go it alone. If the operator has worked in the restaurant industry and perhaps has friends, family members, mentors in the industry who can help guide the new operator, they can be fantastic resources to try to help guide them through the entire process. They can give advice about do's and don'ts. They can try to steer the new operator clear of mistakes that they have made in the past to try to tell them how to avoid those same mistakes. And especially for licensing and to opening a restaurant, sometimes other restaurant operators can be very supportive. It depends on the community, I think. And if the new operator is able to reach out and find other people who are in the industry or industry associations, they can sometimes be wonderful resources.
Great. Now, Michelle, how about the same question for you? What are your thoughts?
I agree with Grace. I do believe that there are situations where an operator is perfectly capable of, particularly obtaining their own alcohol license, and many times it depends upon the jurisdiction. Throughout the United States, we see so many different requirements and processes with respect to obtaining alcohol licenses. Some jurisdictions, it's very easy to get your alcohol license. You can go down to the business license office. They'll sit down with you. They'll walk you through the paperwork. It's a 2-page application, and in a couple of weeks, you've got your alcohol license. Other jurisdictions, it can take 4 to 6 months to obtain a similar type of alcohol license. So that can certainly dictate whether or not an operator would want to do it themselves. I do think that regardless of whether an operator obtains their alcohol license by using assistance or by doing it themselves, it is important for operators to make sure that they familiarize themselves with the laws that apply to their alcohol license.
Sure.
So many jurisdictions will issue an alcohol license based upon a representation on the application that the applicant has read the ordinance, and they really don't require anything more than that. And that can be a real potential hazard for licensees who aren't aware of some of the laws that may impact them and may end up resulting in their alcohol license being suspended or revoked.
And that's good information. Based on that, Grace and Michelle, pick one. Grace, you're going to go first. Which are some of the states that are probably the easiest one? And I know there's also local jurisdiction, but let's just kind of keep it at a high level of state. Which are some of the easiest one to obtain a liquor license? And maybe, Michelle, you can tell us a handful of states that are the more challenging one to obtain a license.
The licensing process, as Michelle said, it really does vary depending on where you are. So your location is really going to drive what kind of a licensing process you're looking at. In some places, your location may only require a state license. In other places, it may require 2 kinds of licenses, a local liquor license and a state liquor license. As far as which jurisdictions are considered easier, I would say that Florida is fairly easy, very business friendly. The Florida liquor license process is a state liquor license application. The amount of information that needs to be disclosed is not as long and complicated as other jurisdictions that I have seen and that I've worked in for liquor licensing purposes. So I think Florida would be considered one of the easier business-friendly states.
What other states would be also in that same category?
Well, I think
Okay, we're not going to throw stumping questions at our guest this morning, Eric. Let's ask now. I'm intrigued by the opposite side of the question, which is, where is it really tough to muster the resources that you need in order to get a liquor license? Michelle, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it's somewhat interesting that you have Grace and I on the phone, because many people, and I would be one to agree, that Georgia, where my office is located, is one of the most difficult places to obtain an alcohol license. And not necessarily across the board, but as Grace was mentioning, in Georgia, you mainly have a state license. In Florida, you mainly have a state license. In Georgia, every local entity, every county, and every city has its own licensing process. In addition, you also have to obtain a state alcohol license. So you have to go through that local process first, and depending upon which city or which county you're in, can vary greatly with respect to the amount of information you have to provide, oftentimes I have counties where my alcohol license application is 3 to 4 inches thick with the information
Wow.
that's required. They're not only asking for information about each officer, each director, but they want to know wives' names, mother-in-law's address, children, where they were born. It just goes into a lot of information that's required and documentation that's required with respect to many of the local licenses. And the state license also requires quite a bit of information to be able to get your state license in Georgia as well.
I want to follow up on that because I know we're in a regulation nation, obviously, and one reason all this information is gathered is, when things go wrong. And unfortunately, they can go wrong when you mix alcohol and young people and maybe inexperienced operators and different sorts of things. Tell us a little bit, Michelle, what do you believe are some of the risks associated with an owner who's selling alcohol in his business?
Certainly, the biggest risk is the dram shop liability. The more immediate risk is the failure of compliance checks, either by the local jurisdiction or the state jurisdiction, and that's when the state Department of Revenue or the licensing entity or the local licensing entity will send in undercover operatives to attempt to purchase alcohol. And if the operator's employees fail, then that can result in a suspension of your alcohol license, up to a revocation of your alcohol license, to a fine. And it can vary even on a first-time violation. I've seen first-time violations result in as little as a $300 fine and a slap on the wrist or a warning. I've seen a first-time violation result in a complete revocation of an alcohol license with a $5,000 fine. So that's certainly an immediate issue. Really even more significant than that is the dram shop liability aspect, because dram shop cases are historically very high verdict cases, and it's an employee's conduct who doesn't check an ID or who overserves a customer that can result in shutting your business down completely with a 40, 50, $100 million verdict.
Absolutely.
And it depends on the facts. It's really going to depend on the facts of each particular case
Absolutely.
as far as penalties go.
And can you, Grace, tell us? I mean, Michelle, you mentioned dram shop laws, and people in the industry may know, but people who are thinking about getting into the industry may not be familiar what dram shop laws are. Can you guys spend a couple seconds here to explain a little bit high level what that is?
Go ahead, Grace. Kick us off and tell us what a dram shop, what that term even means for our listeners.
Sure. So, dram shop, when you are selling alcohol, you have a responsibility to sell alcohol in a careful manner. You don't want to be serving alcohol to minors. You don't want to be serving alcohol to people who have had too much to drink. And if you are serving alcohol to a minor, or if you're serving alcohol to somebody who has had too much to drink, and your customer in turn injures other people, injures property, injures himself or herself, then with the dram shop laws, they will sometimes hold the server, the business that served and provided that alcohol, liable. So with dram shop liability, if there has been injury to either the actual person who was your customer or to others, depending on the circumstances, they may find you liable under dram shop laws for serving alcohol irresponsibly.
That's very good information. I think that helped the listeners' understanding. And like we heard many times, it is a privilege to serve alcohol. And based on that, Michelle, how can you mitigate that risk? Can you enlighten us on how do you mitigate that risk that you have facing you day to day?
Well, the best practices for mitigating your risk of having employees make an illegal sale that's going to subject you to liability is really a three-pronged approach, and that is making sure that you have a comprehensive written policy that deals with service of alcohol, and what your expectations are for your servers with respect to compliance with the laws. The second component of that is training your employees, making sure that all of your employees have been trained in responsible alcohol sales and service procedures. And then the third component that really wraps it all up, or is, if you call it the glue that makes it stick, is the monitoring. Because the research shows that many businesses will have a policy, they'll have training, but if they don't do the follow-up monitoring, then the responsible sales procedures that their employees might exhibit shortly after training will soon wane and become less and less diligent with respect to the procedures. So there's various types of monitoring that retailers can engage in.
I guess, Grace, let me just jump in there and ask you to respond, because a lot of folks listening who are operators are just like at this point going, my goodness, this feels so overwhelming. Those 3 steps, just the comprehensive written policy, the training, and the monitoring. But this isn't something where you're on your own, correct? There are resources out there that can actually implement the program, education. Tell us a little bit about that.
That's right. So responsible alcohol training and responsible alcohol service resources are out there. Sometimes the licensing agencies, the agencies either on the local level or the state level, they can be excellent resources, and they can provide you with information about how to be a responsible alcohol server and how to be a responsible alcohol retailer. Depending on the jurisdiction, some licensing agencies make it mandatory, and they say you must go through a minimum kind of responsible alcohol server training program. That can either be a program offered by the licensing agency on the local level or the state level, or the agency will sometimes provide a list saying that here is our list of approved third-party companies that provide responsible alcohol server training and can give you the training either in person, or there are companies now where you can do online training. You can take a test, you can take a quiz for you to make sure that you're understanding what they're trying to teach you. And then there are those kinds of companies that can maintain the records to make sure that all of your employees, they keep a record of which employees were trained on what date. So in some places, responsible alcohol server training is mandatory, and the licensing agency can provide good information. Other states, such as Florida, for example, it's voluntary. Florida is not a state that requires responsible alcohol server training. They encourage it, and there is a benefit if you do qualify as a responsible alcohol server. Your penalties might be less in the event of a citation. Your insurance premiums might be less because you've satisfactorily gone through a responsible server training.
And
So the licensing agencies can sometimes provide that information. It's important to also make sure that the operator understands what those requirements are.
That's a lot of
in
good
every particular
information.
place.
That is good
Who needs
information.
to be trained and how often.
Good. And we can go probably on all day for on this topic, but I want to move it along a little bit. That is a lot of good information, guys. And for you guys out there, that's definitely something to look if you're a current operator. Michelle, tell us a bit more about, we operate in many states, and we see like happy hours, promotions, discounts, all kinds of different things out there, and we hear all kinds of different laws and old wives' tales and everything like that. Tell us a bit more about, enlighten us about how this works in certain states and everything about, discounting alcohol and promotions and happy hours and so forth.
That goes back to the comment we were discussing earlier, and that is that regardless of how much a retailer may be able to do themselves, one very important thing that they need to look at is the laws that govern the promotions and govern the actual day-to-day operations of their alcohol license. Most states have some form of a happy hour restriction or some type of restriction on their alcohol. One very common restriction that is in a number of states is the prohibition against using coupons for purchasing alcoholic beverages. Now, not every state has that prohibition, but a number of them do. And where restaurants often get in trouble is they open and they want to encourage the neighborhood to come in, and they'll offer here's a coupon for a free drink, free martini when you come in and visit us, or here's a coupon for $5 off your bill, and they don't put the language excludes alcoholic beverages at the bottom of that flyer. So that can cause them to get into trouble. And then there are various restrictions. I'll give you a example that happened to a retailer about a year ago in one of the jurisdictions. That jurisdiction had a number of happy hour promotion prohibitions. One is that you can't give away alcohol for free. Another is that you cannot deliver a pitcher of beer to less than 2 people at a time. All of your security personnel have to have manager permits. And then obviously you can't sell to minors. And that restaurant had a promoter who came in and said, we want to do a great promotion. We're going to help you guys out. We're going to come in. We're going to pay for these shots that we're giving to your customers. So you don't have to worry. It's not being given away free because we're paying for it. And we're going to bring in a huge crowd for you. So that the restaurant thought it sounded like a good idea. They hired a couple of police officers from another jurisdiction. And that night there was a compliance check. The bartender served a pitcher of beer to the undercover police officer who was with the undercover minor and did not require an ID from the minor. So he sold a pitcher of beer to less than 2 legally aged people at a time. Shortly after that, the promoter came and gave 2 shots to the minor and to the police officer. So because it was free to the customer, they were giving away free alcohol. They also gave it to the minor, so they then provided alcohol to a minor. And those off-duty police officers did not have server permits, which was required by the local jurisdiction.
Okay, this is a really, really ugly story going to a bad place for a naive operator.
I think it's time to take a break.
We want to get the details on all of that when we return from our brief commercial timeout. I want to thank our sponsor, today's restaurant, the Food Service Industry Newspaper. Remember, you are listening to the Restaurant Brokers, Eric and Robin Gagnon. We sell restaurants. Tune in every Saturday at noon and return after the commercial break for more information.
And don't touch that dial.